members of the public who I don't want this to fly past them at all, right? And you made mention of something that is really, really very common. Persons coming to the office and they often ask for a restraining order, right? Against someone they may feel threatened by. You're saying in Trinidad and Tobago, you cannot obtain a restraining order.
Well, yes, the
Right.
restrainer, you can obtain the same document or what they have in their mind as a restraining order is what
It's
they
really
really
a
want as a
protection.
protection. Yes.
Right.
So it's the same document, it has the same weight and effect, but the terminology is a bit different. So in
Right.
Trinidad, we refer to it as a protection order.
Right.
So let's say you and your sister, you're not on good terms, and she's always verbally abusive. She's threatening your life. She's using obscene language. She would have assaulted you. Well, she hit you a couple of times, and you want a protection order to protect
Mm-hmm.
you from these obscene language, threatening language, this violence.
Right.
This is where you can come to the court under the protection order under the Domestic Violence Act, and if the court is satisfied that you are in some sort of danger, that domestic violence is taking place, the court would give the protection order.
Right.
So the classic situation are husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, that we were in a relationship, we're not in a relationship no more. If you can't be with me, you can't be with nobody else. You can't talk to anybody else. Cursing, violence, calling, ringing on your phone 20 times.
Right.
Whereas, who you talking to? You're
Any
not
form of
home. I didn't
harassment.
get at home. Yes. So all these things could get a protection order for. Now, the protection order is only for a specific class of people. Class meaning there must be a relationship between the applicant, that's the person applying for the protection order, and the person who is allegedly committing these obscene language, the assault, the violence.
So that is the question, Stephen, I wanted to ask in order to, for clarification's sake. Are there different types of protection orders based on the act it falls under? And when we're talking about domestic violence, protection order under the Domestic Violence Act, it requires a relationship. But is there any type of protection order against the offenses against the person act if the person is not related to you and not family?
Right. So this is what we touched on at first in the two types of protection order. So
Types
yes,
of
there
protection
is.
order. Right.
So the first category would be a protection order that's given under the Domestic Violence Act
Domestic violence,
for
right?
persons who are related. Domestic is what? Family, we related some way or the other.
Boyfriend and girlfriend, how we proving that relationship?
Right. So this is where the amendment came into
Right.
play. Child father, that's a common term in court.
Right.
You have no relation, the only relation you have, you always
No
have
legal
woman.
relation.
Right. So
Yeah.
a child father wants to beat mom, a child father
Right.
abusing mom. The amendment, the domestic violence amendment allowed these child father, child mother, these relationships to be captured by the Domestic Violence Act. But to
Right.
answer your question, the second aspect of the the second aspect of the protection order
Order.
will
Mm-hmm.
be under the Offenses Against the Person Act.
Right.
So if your neighbor is harassing you, your neighbor has no relation with you, so it can be a domestic situation. So there's no
Right.
relationship at all. So the Domestic Violence Act will not, those things will not apply to you. The Offenses Against the Person Act, they recognize that your neighbor would be harassing you. The man across the road would be harassing you. When you walk in the street, there's this old man who always slurring at you, always saying these profanities at you.
Right.
The Offenses Against the Person Act would have stepped in and said, wait, certain criteria, the basic criteria for general knowledge would be once there are two offenses that you consider harassment, may it be obscene language, may it be inappropriate comments, may it be violence, may it be anything. Well, we will not dwell into that too much because that's a whole other webinar. But once there are two occasions that you would deem as harassment within 6 months, there must be two occasions within 6 months, you can approach the court to get a protection order under the Offenses Against the Person Act. This is where there is no relationship between parties.
Wonderful. It's a lot for us to take in there. So just to reinforce, you're breaking it down that in fact, a protection order, not a restraining order, right? That's the term used in the US, the term in Trinidad and Tobago for our legal jurisdiction is a protection order. And just as the name would suggest, it protects you, the victim, the alleged victim or the applicant. It provides you with protection, right? We would have discussed two types of protection orders being governed by two variant types of legislation. For the purpose of this webinar, we focus first on the Domestic Violence Act as amended in 2020, and that has to do with protection orders filed for against persons related to you, right? There must be some relationship, and the amendment we've had recently would include unmarried partners who would have had children or not. Is it in the amendment, Stephen, is it just for unmarried partners who share children, or can it be unmarried partners who would have shared a romantic relationship?
Right. So yes. So just very briefly, the amendment of 2020 would have listed certain domestic relationships. So very briefly, would be a spouse or a former spouse, would be a cohabitant or a former cohabitant. That's someone who would have lived together with you. A dependent, somebody who's dependent on you, a relative, a person who has agreed to marry the respondent, whether or not the marriage went through. Persons in a visiting relationship, persons who are dating, relative of the respondent who is related by marriage. So now it's sister-in-law, a brother-in-law, but now we under the Domestic Violence Act. And the second one would be members of the same household. Which you reside. So if you reside together with your boyfriend or your common law husband, and he has an aunt who is there, or he has another person who is there who are
living in the same house,
Yes, who are under the same house, under the same roof, then the amendment would have extended the barrier to capture all these.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm grateful for that amendment, because what has happened realistically in society is that societal norms have definitely changed and altered, and so many different, relatives or persons who may be related to you can be considered. So it's very, very good that the law has included these new relationships, right? To include it so that it could definitely be covered. All right. Remember to bring the questions, but we will be attacking them a little bit after. We want to get through the first part of it in terms of defining the types of protection orders, explaining thoroughly which falls under where, and how it can be helpful to you or someone you know that may be affected by domestic violence and or harassment. And as Mr. Daniel would have highlighted, harassment falls under the Offenses Against the Person Act.